Hi, my name is Josh Lawler. I am a partner at the law firm of Zuber, Lawler, and Duca, where I practice securities law and intellectual property law and head our firm's new technology group. Notably, I spend a lot of time working with distributed ledger technology and blockchain, and for purposes of this video, ICOs and token economies and how to really make securities law mesh with your token economy goals. Okay, so I have to say, this video is not to be taken as legal advice, certainly not as investment advice, and also these are my opinions. They're not everybody's opinions. There's a lot of differences in this area. Point being that this is a very, very murky area, which is why my daughter insisted that I wear this safety yellow vest. But if you get competent counsel, that ought to take care of it for you. So with that said, let's get into our topic today, which is how can tokens be used for their intended purpose if they are securities? If you think about it, it's actually a really big problem. Your typical token economy, you want to have hundreds of thousands of people on it in some cases, being able to buy their distributed applications or content or whatever else it might be. It might be real estate, who knows? And if you've got restricted securities, well, they're restricted. And you know that doesn't necessarily go in the same direction as having this widespread and free use of a decentralized mechanism. Isn't that the whole point in the first place? All right, so a few basics so that we can get into this. I went over most of this in my last video, so you can see it in more detail, so I'm going to go pretty quickly here. The law regulates transactions, not securities. And the question that you've got is on the Howey elements, was your transaction an investment in a common enterprise based on the efforts of others with the expectation of a return? If yes, then it was a transaction in securities. If not, these really aren't securities at all. We're going to think about restricted securities and unrestricted securities, and we need to do this as a baseline. Restricted security is what you typically think of as having been issued in a Reg D 506C or a Reg S within the one-year holding period, or otherwise, not a public registered offering. Unrestricted securities. Unrestricted security might be sold in a public offering, like an IPO. Might be sold in an exempt offering that allows them to be unrestricted, like a Tier 2 Regulation A+, which last video we talked about the exchange offer. Or, might have been held for a year by your purchasers in your Reg D or Reg S transaction, then sold by non-affiliates in a secondary sale, and poof, they're unrestricted securities. And that's all great, but registered offerings are expensive, holding periods take time and don't widely distribute. Reg A Plus is wonderful, but nobody's actually pulled it off yet, or for that matter, I think even filed one purely based on tokens as opposed to some other type of security. So let's talk about some ways where we might distribute tokens that would be unrestricted. And before we do that, I have to address kind of a giant contradiction, if you will, but it's important people understand. If you don't have the investment element, you're not even a security. But that's the same token that is a restricted security if it's sold in a Reg D or Reg S. And yes, it can be both at the same time, or the same type of tokens with no other differences can be both at the same time. You can think of it like some examples from physics. It's a photon. It's both a particle and a wave. It's quantum physics, and we're talking about Schrodinger's cat. The cat is alive and the cat is dead at the same time. This will kind of melt your face. So what we suggest is, instead of thinking it as unrestricted, restricted, and not securities, just think of all the not securities that are tokens as unrestricted securities. And in this particular case, there's not really a practical difference. All right, so with that said, we're talking about unrestricted securities and how do we get them out there from the issuer without spending a ton of money or needing a lot of time. Method number one, the airdrop. A lot of people are talking about airdrops right now, and it does, or at least it should, work. The catch is you have to do your airdrop correctly, and a lot of people are not thinking about doing it that way. So here's the way this works. When somebody makes a purchase decision in an investment in securities, if there is a promise that there's going to be an airdrop or a dividend of tokens later, then those tokens in that airdrop or dividend are, in my opinion, likely still going to be considered restricted securities. So you want to avoid that. How can you do your airdrop? Well, if you truly give the tokens away, that's going to work. So you might do that by issuing a token to everybody who's holding Ether, per Ether, just as if it was a hard fork. You might do it by geography and just decide, for instance, that you want to raise money in the United States using a 506C, but you want global spread without needing to comply with all the other securities laws in the world. So you airdrop into those foreign territories, but not into the United States. Well, wait a second. I mean, you may be thinking, aren't my investors in that 506C going to have a problem with that? The answer is, well, not if you really spin it the correct way. Already, most ICOs are holding 33% of their tokens back for encouraging adoption of their system. And this airdrop is just marketing, and you can market it to your investors as marketing. The idea is, you're seeding the world with your tokens so that people know that they should be coming to your platform to engage in whatever they're going to engage in. That is going to expand your market. That is going to drive up your token value. Everybody has big smiles on their faces, and that's what's supposed to happen. So that's the sell on the airdrop. Second methodology. This is more of a dribbling the tokens out as it goes. And I came up with this week, and I was actually thinking about calling it the Lawler mechanism, but on the first take of this video, that seemed a little cheesy. So let's not do that. This is just dribbling your securities out through your store. And here's how it works. You have your issuer who has the platform, issues native tokens. You've got a buyer, and that buyer is going to buy something on the platform, whether it be a distributed application or content. And you've got a third party who's a seller who actually developed the distributed application, created the content, posted it. That's who's ultimately getting paid the native tokens. And here's the setup. When that purchaser comes to your user interface, and they're on your platform, and they find something they want to buy, they hit the purchase button. And when they hit the purchase button, they can do one of two things. They can pay in native tokens that they already have in a wallet someplace, and that's easy. It's not a sale by the issuer. Or alternatively, they can bring in fiat currency, they can bring in Ether, Bitcoin, whatever it is that you're taking, but you don't want those to be used on your platform. You want your native token to be used in your platform. So you have to do kind of a quick change. But when they come from the issuer, it's definitely an issuer transaction. So here's what we do. When that purchase button is hit, if they're bringing in fiat or coins, then the issuer takes that fiat, takes those coins, exchanges them for native tokens at whatever the going exchange rate is, and that's now what the purchaser has. The purchaser then sends those coins to the seller, and when I say then sends, it's happening automatically. This is all on hitting the purchase button. But those coins go from the buyer to the seller, and that's a secondary transaction. Now that initial sale from the issuer to the purchaser, hard to say that's an investment. You're sending something, it's already used. You've already hit the purchase button. It's buying something. It's not being held for appreciation purposes. Really can't be considered an investment. Unrestricted security. It goes up to the seller. The seller probably takes it off of the platform, monetizes it on an exchange, and you're off and running. And hopefully someday your finite number of tokens no longer have to even come from your issuer, and this is truly a distributed application. And that's two ways that you might get your tokens out to the world. So that's it. I hope that it was helpful. If you have any questions, comments, you can reach me at Lawler, that's the letter J, Lawler, at zuberlaw.com. And I will be more than happy to engage in discussion and figure this stuff out a little bit further. Till next time.